we passed that 2-year hump and everything was wonderful and we're winning awards and accolades and top chefs and everything. And then suddenly, oh, it's 2020 and of course we don our masks and it kind of, all of a sudden it just was a roadblock. And as great as it was before and during, because you know, and during COVID, we had some great promotions here. We had a lot of fun with it, and the customer was at ease. When we came out of it, things changed. We lost that momentum.
Welcome to Local Living Tri-City, your go-to podcast for exploring the vibrant communities of Temecula, Murrieta, and Menifee. Join me, Liz Jones, as we dive into real estate insights and local business stories, bringing you closer to the heart of our Tri-City area. Let's get started with today's episode.
Well, welcome everyone. We are here today on site. This is Chef Martin, and we are going to be talking about Ronis today. Chef Martin, great to have you here again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This is a really great opportunity to see the transition and see what's changed. And I'm pretty excited. We've been in to support your restaurant. We're excited about some of the menu items. I kind of want to just go over the transformation and evolution, I guess you could say.
The who's, what's, why's, where's, and how's. Yeah, no, I get it.
So lay it on me. What's
all right?
Why the transformation from Chef's Grille to Ronis?
Ronis West. Well, after we'll go back in time. 2017 opened in 2017 as Chef's Grille was great. 2018, 2019. Excellent. We passed that 2-year hump and everything was wonderful and we're winning awards and accolades and top chefs and everything. And then suddenly, oh, it's 2020 and of course we don our masks and it kind of, all of a sudden it just was a roadblock. And as great as it was before and during, because you know, and during COVID, we had some great promotions here. We had a lot of fun with it and the customer was at ease. When we came out of it, things changed. We lost that momentum, which is normal in the restaurant.
Even coming back to restaurants is different.
And the prices, supply chain issues, of course. Our prices had to go up because your prices went up and our suppliers. Labor issues because all the labor went up. And we ended up having to change so much that we lost that momentum of the trendiness of the Chef's Grille. And we maintained for a while and we did well, but at the end of the day, it's not a nonprofit. And I had to look at it and say, you know what, we need a new pair of shoes.
So a new rebrand,
right,
so to speak. Launch it as a brand new restaurant with a brand new flair. Let's bring back what we did the first time under a new umbrella.
Exactly. The Ronis, which is apostrophe R-O-N-I-S. It's not Ronnie's. And Ronis is short for macaronis, because when I was a little kid, we ran in the house and said, Ma, want some Ronis? You know, so that's where it came from. And I owned a restaurant in the 1990s, way back. You know,
people, yeah.
Yep. You know, before electricity.
Yeah.
And it was called Ronis East. And Ronis East was in Brantford, Connecticut, and it was very successful, and I loved it. And I closed it only because I went into corporate research and development. So I transitioned from right side of the brain to left side of the brain, and then I brought it all together. And so Ronis, I always owned the name, kept the rights to it. And when all this happened, it was the public spoke. We did our test kitchen Tuesdays on the Chef's Grille. We heard from the consumer, and they loved it. It was just an affordability and a comfort after COVID and scared people. My senior crowd, unfortunately, I lost my senior crowd. They just can't afford it. And people just couldn't afford things. So we lost the business crowd during COVID and after because people weren't working from offices. Correct. So we birthed Ronis West. We literally closed on a Sunday and reopened on a Thursday from Chef's Grille to Ronis West, which is the same way I did it back in Connecticut when Ronis East was born. I had a restaurant called Chef Martin. It was successful, and then the recession hit back east. Closed on a Sunday, reopened on a Thursday as Ronis East. So a lot of the menu has similarity, and we've added some upscale, better items that were very chef's grill as well.
I love that. Well, I think that's a great way to bridge the two. Obviously, in any kind of business environment, whether it's a kitchen, a restaurant, or even in my kind of business, the more you diversify, the weaker your offerings are. So coming in and focusing in on Italian, focusing in on a little flair, Mediterranean style, that gives you the flexibility to be creative at the same time to deliver that flavor that everyone's counting on. Correct?
Exactly. And it's still, to my customers and to my new customers and to yourselves, it's still me. It's still Chef Martin. I love it. And to all the small business people out there who have suffered, don't be so quick to throw in the towel. You have the absolute power to say, you know what? I'm going to take a different route. And you just turn the wheel and you take a different path, and you got to, for lack of a better word, you have to have the balls to say, you know what? I'm going to close and reopen.
Right.
Because I had my core consumer.
Right.
I had my following, my staff, and everything is in place. So let's just rewrite the book.
I think that's beautiful.
And it's been fantastic. Italian. Everybody loves Italian.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
You could bring any family member here, little or big, and the little ones can come and eat pasta, and then everybody else can dine up. So give me an idea of a sampling of your menu, and what's your favorite dish that you serve, and what's the most common that people order?
Well, in the appetizer realm, we have arguably the best flagship garlic bread that it's just over the top. It kind of like, you just need a cigarette after it. It's that great. We have our pasta dishes. We have gambaro stufati, which is with veal and chicken and artichoke hearts and roasted peppers, and it's a delicious with a veal demi-glaze over spinach fettuccine. Shrimp capri, which was one of my biggest hits when I was back east. And that's shrimp and capers and a little touch of anchovy, spinach and tomatoes, a little zip of anisette, and then fresh shrimp cooked in, then reduced with heavy cream and cheese and done over angel hair.
That does sound good.
It's the bomb.
Oh, man.
And we do filet mignon dishes. We don't use any tri-tip anymore. We just use filet mignon. Only filet mignon on our meat dishes. And it's a legacy chef's grill item as well, which is done with port wine pine nuts and our demi-glaze over pasta. And the other filet mignon dish is the beef. Well, it's just done with this rich tomato sauce, and garlic butter dripping over the top of it. So
fabulous.
we diversify. We are bringing back every week to the consumer also. We're bringing back Chef's Grill items now.
No kidding.
We've been open for 3 months.
Probably giving yourself some more loyalty from the old customer that comes back and said, I wish you would. Yes. Can you keep that item? That's my favorite.
Yes, it's very true. They were very pissy. They were very pissy.
People in general, right?
They were very pissy when I had to change. And, I'm sorry. I love the Chef's Grill. It was great. It's like my dogs.
It's your baby.
Every dog I've ever had is the best dog I've ever had.
Yeah.
And every restaurant I've ever had is the best restaurant I've ever had. And we had to do it. It's still me. It's still my staff. It's still a great environment.
Yes.
It's still your restaurant, only we just kind of stepped it up and gave you told me what you wanted in my focus groups. You spoke to me and said, this is what we want, and this was the solution.
Well, what does that customer look like today? Who is that customer? Who was that customer before? Who is this customer currently after 5 months?
After 5 months, our customer base, my Chef's Grill people are coming back and saying, okay, it's still you, we're sorry. And the new customer is comfort food.
Comfort.
where it's not, the chef's grill was very chef oriented.
Right.
Sights, sounds, flavors, smells, techniques, preparations, they were all higher end. And now it's approachable more. So my customers and the public, it's more approachable. They know they can come in and get spaghetti and meatballs.
If they want it, right.
Or
You
they
can have the hoity-toity and I'll do spaghetti
or
and
they can
meatballs.
get veal piccata.
Yeah.
And so there's many different ways and directions, and it's comfort. There's nothing like taking home a to-go box with leftover pasta and
Yes.
food, and
Great for the morning after.
and it's breakfast. Oh yeah, cold or hot, baby. That's right.
And it always tastes good the second day better.
Yes.
Better. All the flavors merge together.
And making lasagna is kind of fun.
Yeah. That,
You know,
imagine
I
it
mean,
is fun.
I'm Italian, second generation Italian. All my grandparents were born in the old country. So I grew up with it. You know, the men cooked, the women cooked a little, the men cooked. And it was a great time.
Yeah.
So I'm able to bring back a lot of those feelings that I want to
Absolutely.
give and let people feel what I felt.
You know, as I grew up, and you just brought back a memory to me, my family, I lived in New Rochelle, New York. My aunts, and most of them no longer had husbands around, or they were, grew up without a husband. And they had a brownstone, and they used to bring us all together as a group and make a meal for us. And I remember my little aunt, who's bent over at 80, walking down the stairs with a big thing of pasta or lasagna, gigantic meatballs. They were this big, and she would come down the tiny, skinny little stairs all the way to the basement, and we'd all be there, and all the grandkids would be there. It'd be a great time. We'd be there for 5 hours.
And you couldn't,
talking.
you just couldn't help but celebrate.
Yes, absolutely. It was life and
there was
celebration.
so much celebration in the moment, when, especially with Italian food. I mean, Italians they're crazy.
I think that's something that we do differently here in the U.S. We come for a meal and then get out. And if you go any place in Europe, it is a celebration. It's about being together, and there's just good food that makes this moment even better. And
It's about hospitality. It's about when you walk into a restaurant, you do DoorDash, or you do Grubhub, or you do casual or fast casual, you're going to eat.
yes,
You just want to eat and get it over with.
right.
But when you come to Ronis and you come to a chef-owned run restaurant, you come for the experience. You can eat anywhere or anyhow, but when you come out, you're coming to walk through these doors, the door is shut, you're inside, you're captive, your blood pressure goes down, you're going to dine, you're going to be in an environment that's filled with smell of garlic and sauce and smiling servers, and you have a cuisine that's just so, you can't help but just feel the comfort.
Absolutely.
Comfort.
Yeah, a good glass of wine. I know you have a pretty good wine collection too. I remember that from the last time we talked. That's kind of nice, because honestly, you go into some restaurants, whether or not they're Italian or not, and they have a limited supply of wine for you. So that's kind of nice. And I noticed your full bar.
Yeah, full bar.
Obviously, you offer that kind of service too. And, you've always had a specialty cocktail set up. Do you still have that offering?
I still have many new cocktails and some of our legacy Chef's Grill special cocktails. But like now we have an Italian margarita. We bring it up in 2 different types of new Italian beers. But the wine list has changed, and we brought in some more Italian wines, which are very, very special, because every wine I choose is something that I test. It's an arduous task.
Oh, I'm sure, but somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it.
Oh, yeah, the troubles I do. So, but the wines are also, I'm not that restaurant that says, I'm going to put this on the wine list because it's a good price and people like it. No.
Yes.
If it doesn't do anything for my cuisine, I'm not going to put it on the list, because it's not fair to you, and it's not fair. It's not fair to us. It's not fair to you, and we have to stay true to the art.
Well, it's interesting. So there are diners like myself. We know we've had a wine that sits well with us. We can remember the name of that wine, but then once you don't have that on the menu, we haven't a clue what to order, right? Red, white, I don't know, I guess, or how heavy it is, or too many tannins. And you provide that information for your diners. I've seen you often pair
Yes.
a lot.
Yes, what we do is it's listed on each menu item on the menu also, what I suggest you have with this. And then there's, curveballs too. If
Yeah.
you as a customer say, well, I don't like that, I don't want this wine, I do better with this red, I don't like Sangiovese, but I'll give you something a little different, a blend, or even a Cab Merlot blend, which may not be Italian, but it goes very well with the dish. I mean, it doesn't have to be Italian to go with Italian food.
Right.
Wine is its own dimension.
It really is.
Yeah, so it's
kind of like
it's a love.
coffees. There's a lot of great flavors in that. So that's awesome. Well, tell me about what can I do to spread the word to people out there about your restaurant, I noticed that you're no longer at lunch. You're not serving lunch right now, which allows your crew to be really fresh at dinner time. In other words, bring their best at dinner.
Well, I can correct you on that. We do lunch only on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, so
Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
Lunch is available. We're open at 11 o'clock. I think 12 o'clock on Sunday, 11 o'clock on Saturday.
Okay.
But during the week, it just didn't make sense anymore during the business week.
Different structure.
Different structure now as far as business dining, it's gone away.
Yeah.
And in this area.
Right.
And so we do the lunch, and we do lunch specials, dinner specials on every day. So it's a lot of fun being creative still. And what I can ask for help is the success that we were, and we still are as the Chef's Grill, it's still us. The Chef's Grill is not gone. The Chef's Grill, this is actually the Chef's Grill, DBA Ronis West.
Exactly.
It's still me, and it's still empowering and exciting because I get to birth a new baby here.
Yeah.
I'm like that bird, the eagles up in Bear.
That's right.
You
That's
got
so
some babies.
great. That's so
And
great.
it's still me, it's still us, it's exciting, it's still fun, and I still take the input from my customers, and I still learn from the customers, and it's just like starting over.
So that's important for me to hear, because as I talk to our audience, actually, for those of you who had tried Chef's Grill and came once or twice, it's important for you to return, give Ronis a chance. For those of you that were Chef Grill fanatics, it's important for you to come back several times, give the menu a chance. So I think that it's important for you guys to understand what he's saying is that a resident chef here brings all of his expertise to whatever kind of cuisine he brings. And you have a limited amount of wonderful Murrieta-based restaurants here.
Yes.
We need to support our local restaurants, help them thrive. And I know
it's really important.
Yeah, we're going to have a few seasons that are coming. You've got all the concert series that are coming here across the street. This will be a great opportunity for people to try you that don't know about you.
There's events coming up, graduations. So we do a lot of catering. So
that's another great
graduations coming up, weddings, rehearsals, showers, all the events that scream comfort with Italian cuisine. So
and it's always something everyone likes, right? There's very few people that turn away on Italian, which is kind of nice. And the environment is still quaint and charming.
We actually did a lot of work.
It's beautiful. It is charming. It's really come along. And I'll tell you what, I'd love for everyone who's listening to this podcast to come out, support our local restaurants, support Ronis, and give it a try. It's a great thing, and I'm excited.
It's your home. This area is your home, and you want to have great places to go, but it's like having a garden. You got to water it.
Absolutely.
And, again, really quickly, the cuisine is not your simple, basic Italian. It's Italian, but I'm staying true to the art and respecting Italian cuisine, but I'm going to add a little Mediterranean flair to items, so it's a sense of difference.
I like that. So a place to bring your friends to is what I hear. So and the price points range, or the price points are between Okay, so-
The average meal, I think, on the entree end is like 23 to 25, so it's more affordable
That's
because
DoorDash today.
it
for
got
everybody, right?
I mean, after COVID and the Chef's Grill, we had to have a higher price point,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. That's what
I
made
think
us
everyone,
choose.
there's no restaurant in town, I mean, that is surviving, that doesn't meet these standards and these price points. So it's definitely
Yeah,
cool.
we step back and we step forward.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you for everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for reopening, for rebranding, for not just closing a door and leaving, there's a different shell, but you took us into a new exploration. So I'm excited.
I will not take a knee.
Hey, there you go. I love it. I love that attitude. Chef Martin, thank you so much again
Liz.
for doing
My
this
pleasure.
again with
Thank
me.
you for
I
having me.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll need the support. And I hope everybody, all my audience, supports this restaurant, Ronis, here in Murrieta behind City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Local Living Tri-City. Stay tuned for more insights and stories from Temecula, Murrieta, Menifee, and surrounding areas. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend that is passionate about the Tri-City area as you are. Goodbye for now, and we'll see you next episode.